Good afternoon, Year 5s, and welcome to your very first science lesson. We're going to be looking at properties of materials this term, and it's really fun and exciting because this is where we're going to be doing a lot of investigating and being able to do some experiments. So our learning objective today is to group and classify materials and according to their properties, okay? And we're going to be looking at our big question today, which is how to classify materials. How do we group those items? So we are going to be doing our just checking. So I'd like you to pause the video now and see if you can answer those 4 questions just to see how much you remember from our previous units in science and what you could even remember from last year in year 4. So have a think about those 4 questions. So pause the video and have a go now. Great, so we are going to be looking at our answers very quickly and seeing how you've done. So what shape is the Earth? Most of you, I hope, would have remembered that it is spherical. So we call something that is a sphere. It's not a circle. It's definitely not flat. It's spherical in shape. Okay, so that is the shape of our Earth. How many planets do we have? Hopefully you remember that there are 8 planets that we have in our solar system. What do we call an object that does not sink? So if we have an object that is in a glass of water and we put it in and it doesn't sink, we would describe it as floating. So if you wrote anything about the fact that it floats, then you can give yourself a mark. And the last thing, this is something you would have hopefully just have common knowledge, or maybe you remembered from your previous units, is what source of power can power devices. So when we have a laptop or a phone, what powers that? And it is the battery. And you'll probably have your parents, or maybe you get frustrated when your battery dies and you're on your iPad or your laptop and you have to charge it. Okay, so that gives it power for a certain amount of time, and then it allows it to and then it needs to be charged to refill it. So we're going to be looking at describing properties today. So let's just have a quick idea about what is a material and where do we find them. So any substance that is used to make something is a material. Okay, so when we're having to look at our desks that we make, the windows, the flip charts, the cupboards, anything that we need to make, that is what we use a material to make it out of. Okay, we get natural materials such as stone, wood, and cotton, which are found in nature, and we call those natural materials because we find them naturally in nature. Things that are man-made, or very fancy word here is called synthetic, are made from natural materials, but we adapt them as humans. So we go and change them a bit. For example, I would never find a desk in nature. If I'm walking in the woods, I'm not going to find a desk that's just magically popped up from the ground, okay? But I would use the materials from a tree to make my desk. So I'd use the wood in order to build the structure of my desk. Okay, so they are altered, which means changed, and they then we also use chemicals to add to them. And some examples include plastics, polyester, and culver. Right, and so there are some examples there of some natural items that we find, and man-made when we change those properties, those materials, so that we can build something. Okay, where we have the input of humans. So when we're using materials, why is it helpful to know the properties of materials? And this is a very important question because you're going to be looking at this in your investigation today. So when we're looking at different items, why would we need to understand the properties of the materials? Now, it is useful to know the properties of the materials so that you can choose the best material for the purpose. For example, if I wanted to make a desk, I want to make sure that it's going to be very sturdy, that it's not going to fall, or if I lean on it, it's not going to break easily. Okay, so I have to think very carefully about what property of material I'm going to be choosing in order to make my desk. So we're going to be looking at some materials and objects now, and we're going to have a think about the properties of these materials and what these could be used for in using our vocab. So I'm just going to get our vocab page up now. Okay, so things that are magnetic means that they obviously come together. That would be a property of that material. All right, so if I have 2 magnets, they're obviously magnetic. They are attracted to one another. If something is reflective, it means it reflects light. It like the light goes away. So reflective, we think about sunglasses, we reflect the light so that it doesn't hurt our eyes. Absorbent is when something is obviously soaked up. okay? And so like a sponge would be a really good material to be used because it obviously soaks up, it is absorbent. Permeable means that things can filter through. Translucent is like transparent, it means that you can see through it. If something is flexible, it means it can bend easily. If something is hard, it means it can't bend easily. Flammable means it can burn very easily. Insulating means it traps the heat in, it keeps you warm, okay? And transparent would also is, obviously we can see through it. So I have some items here, all right, some objects, and I don't know, hopefully you're going to be able to see them. And we're going to think about some of the things that we could potentially use these, and we're going to be looking at the properties of the material. So I have this foam sort of 3D shape here, all right, it's a triangle, all right, and what do you think we could use this for if it's foam, if it's made out of foam? What property out of the ones here in our vocab do you think it would be for? And hopefully you have said that it obviously would be able to be absorbent, and that's a nice fancy high level vocab word. So absorbent, it would soak up anything. If I spilt some of my water on my desk here, I could take this foam sort of sponge, put it on, and it would absorb it. Whereas if I had this material, which is tin foil, and I spilled some water and I put it on, it is not absorbent. But tin foil is very good at reflecting light. You can see how shiny it is here, and it is reflecting the light. So this would be a very good material to reflect the light, which means it wouldn't absorb the light. So sometimes you'll see this on car windows, where they're not trying to get the heat in. I know back home where I come from, lots of people would have used this reflective material on their car windows. They put it up on their window so it reflects the lights, because it gets very hot in South Africa and you don't want your car cooking. So they would put this up and it would protect your dashboard from the sunlight, and it is reflective. So this material, which is tin foil, would be a very good reflective property, okay? The property is what it can do. So it would be a nice reflective. Right, I have some sellotape here, all right? What do you notice about sellotape? What kind of property does it have? And if you have a look at the vocab there, can you see if you can find a word that is very good at describing sellotape? Right, and hopefully you have chosen the word transparent. Now, if you were looking through it, you would be able to see through it. And something like this, although it wouldn't make a very good window because it wouldn't be very strong, because it's very flexible. As you can see, it can bend easily. But if I had to make a temporary window, I would want to maybe use something that I could see out of. So some sellotape, okay? Some of you, if you had to build a little structure, you could build a structure with some sellotape, and you could then have the little windows, you could see through them, okay? Because obviously when you have a window, you'd like to be able to see out of it. Right, I have another one, which is a straw, which is made out of plastic. What do you think this could be used for? It's quite bendy, all right? It's made out of plastic. Now, again, let's say this is a very good example because you guys live in a very rainy country. If I wanted to go outside and it was raining, what kind of property would I want to have that is for a straw, that uses a straw? Okay, think about a raincoat. I might want to use the straw to make a raincoat because obviously I want it to be waterproof, and I'm going to add waterproof to your list. All right, so if I had to make an item out of this plastic straw, I might want to say, well, I could use it to make a raincoat because this property of this material, the straw, because it is plastic, it will not absorb the water, it would simply repel it. Repel means get rid of. And so the water would just fall away. And that's what a raincoat does. The water doesn't get absorbed. That would be an awful property to have of that material, because if I had a spongy raincoat, and you will know, like I have this jumper here, it would be very absorbent, and I would walk outside and I'd get soaked and I wouldn't have, my body would be all wet. Whereas if I put my raincoat on when I go outside and it's raining, the water would just fall off because the property of that material is waterproof. So very important there that we're thinking about the properties for that. And the last one I want to show you is newspaper. Okay, now newspaper is actually, what do you think? What property out of all of those that we've looked in our vocab would you think newspaper would be very good for? You might have seen your parents use it for summertime specifically. What sort of property of would you think about when you're looking at a piece of newspaper? Right, and hopefully you said something about the fact that it might be very flammable. If I had to take a match and I lit this is going to go poof, and it's going to ignite, and it is going to obviously go up in flames. So we call this flammable. Okay, it means that it would be able to burn very easily. It's also actually a very good source of insulation. So if I got very cold and I was outside and I didn't have enough blankets or warm clothes, I could make little balls of newspaper and put them into my clothes, and actually that would insulate me, which would mean keep me warm, and that would be a property of this material. So this is how we describe the properties. We use these words to describe what we have and how we can use those properties in order to create a material for its function. So today's lesson, what I would like you to do is to go around your house and see if you can find at least 10 items, any 10 things. Like I found sellotape, I found newspaper, I found tin foil. You can also find the same things as me. I have this plastic building block thing here. All right, even have a toothpick, all right? And I'd like you to find any 10 random things around your house. Okay, you might want to you can get more than 10 things, all right? And then on Teams, you're going to have some questions and you're going to think about what material would you use to make something. So for example, when I said the first one we had a look at, what would be best to build a window? Okay, I would say I'm going to use the sellotape. Why would I use this material? This is the material, which is sellotape. And the reason why I'd use this material is because its property is transparent. I can see through it. And when you have a look at a window, the function of a window is to be able to obviously see through it and to let the light in. So I could make the sellotape, I could use it to have that for the property. So I hope that makes sense. As a little extra fun for activity for today, if you can perhaps you can maybe design something, build something from those properties. So for example, I have all of these properties and maybe I'll build a little house and I could use the little toothpicks to make the frame of my window, and I would use the sellotape to make my window panes because I'd obviously want to see through it. I could use some of this plastic to build the outside structure of my house because obviously the walls I want to be very sturdy. I want them to be strong. I don't want them to fall over easily. Okay, I might use the paper to build my roof. All right, and then maybe I'd cut the straw up into pieces to be able to build the roof to make sure that it's waterproof so that when it had to rain, then the water would drip off the roof and it wouldn't absorb into my house. So you can maybe think about using those items and see if you can build a little model of something. It doesn't have to be a house, it could be anything, okay? So have a little go at exploring those today. So again, we're looking at the properties of materials. We're finding a material, which is an item. We're looking at those items and we're thinking, what could we use those for because of the properties? Okay, and use that vocab that I gave you earlier to help you to describe those properties. And that's your science lesson for today. Enjoy, have fun, and I will see you back tomorrow. Bye, guys.